Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. We have a great friend, awesome information dude, Dr. David Jockers. He's got some amazing information we're going to talk about today regarding ketogenic diets. David has a phenomenal summit out now called the Keto Edge Summit. I was a speaker in it. Amazing speakers, amazing information. We're going to go over some of the top 3 keto tips that David applies with himself and his patients to help improve their health. David, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing?
Hey, always great to be on, Dr. J. I love listening to you and Evan. Big fan of the show, so always great when I get to be on, and I love our conversations. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here, Doc. I really appreciate it. So let's dive in. So you've been utilizing ketogenic diets, intermittent fasting, these techniques to help improve insulin sensitivity, to help with cellular turnover and healthy aging. So what's the number one thing right now that you find that patients have a barrier with, that when you make this tweak or you make this adjustment, they get to their next level of health utilizing a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, I would say number one thing is hydration. You see, in our brain, our hypothalamus, our hunger center and our thirst center are right next to each other. And whenever we eat, we stimulate dopamine, right? It helps us feel good. And I think that's a great adaptation because, you know, it's like it's great to feel good when we eat, and it helps drive us to eat, to consume food. But what happens is, because food's so prevalent in our society today, whereas our ancestors didn't have access to, we didn't have pantries and refrigerators and things like that in years past. So food is prevalent. We could literally be eating all day long, and we're constantly stimulating that dopamine. And so for many people, we become addicted to it. And our hunger and our thirst center are right next to each other in that area of the brain. And so for many people, they've had these neuroplastic changes where the hunger center has now moved into the thirst center. So they're really thirsty, but they experience it as hunger. So they're like, I need something. I need a dopamine hit. There's something that I'm missing, and there's food. I'm going to go for the food. And really, most people are chronically dehydrated, and we need more fluid. We need more water. And so I find that drinking more water, hydrating your body really well, especially when you first wake up in the morning, so critical for intermittent fasting, so critical for fat burning, for cleansing the body, for energy production, for good mental clarity, and for keto adaptation. And so getting some good water, I recommend drinking, if you're not used to it, start with just 8 ounces, okay? But ideally, trying to get 16 to up to 32 ounces of water within the first hour of waking up. So really hydrating your body well. Because when you're sleeping overnight, you're breathing out water vapor. So you're actually losing water throughout the night. So when you wake up in the morning, really hydrating well, not only will replace that water, but on top of that, it's also going to help stimulate energy production. You're going to notice that your energy goes up. But the better you're hydrated, the more energy production your body's going to have. You're also going to poop better, right? We want to get the poop out. We want to have good bowel movements early in the morning. Your large intestine is most active. So my goal is always to have 2 really good solid bowel movements within the first hour of waking. And it's like my energy is just amazing. My mental clarity, I'm so productive when I'm able to do that. So hydration is number 1 tip.
I think that's amazing. I've been following that for years. When I first discovered the book, Your Body's Many Cries for Waters by Dr. Batman Gillich, he talked about that. I'll add some extra like Redmond's Real Salt, or I'll use a trace mineral support. I'll add to it. Today I had a little bit of alcohol last night. So before I went to bed, if I have a drink, I typically drink a mineral water in between each alcoholic beverage to get the extra minerals back in. And then I did a lot of glutathione before bed and a lot of vitamin C and extra electrolytes to start my day. And those stretch receptors in your tummy, when water comes in, it hits those stretch receptors and allows you to feel more satiated. And then people tend to naturally have an appetite that's more calibrated with what their nutritional needs actually are. So that's a great tip.
Yes, so important. I mean, we have that ghrelin hormone. And so when our stomach is empty, ghrelin's going to come out. It's going to tell us we're hungry. So if you're used to eating, a big breakfast in the morning, it's normal for you to want to eat a big breakfast because you've conditioned this response to have ghrelin pop out. But if you just start by hydrating your body, you're going to notice you're going to be more satiated. So this is a great way to get started with intermittent fasting, is just hydrate your body really well in the morning and then wait for natural hunger to come after that. So start with the hydration and then allow the natural hunger to come, as it comes naturally after that. But yeah, definitely getting the electrolytes in too, adding some good stuff. Very important. Yep.
And as insulin levels drop too, we tend to pee more because insulin tends to pull sodium, sodium tends to pull water. So that's why, someone does a ketogenic diet and drops their carbs really low, they'll lose 3 or 4 pounds the first day. It's not going to be fat, it's going to be water. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really salient point because we are going to be losing a lot of that water. So we have to make sure we get it back. And I would even say the key electrolyte too on keto that I find is really low is potassium. So really upping the potassium and or just really focusing on lots of green vegetables and avocados is another awesome tip for sure.
Yeah, that is important. And sodium too, actually.
Yep.
Sodium, you lose a lot of sodium. So getting
Yep.
a lot of those salts are really, the cool thing is in nature, you get potassium and sodium in good ratios, right? So
Yes.
avocados actually have sodium, celery, potassium and sodium, sea vegetable, right? So all these natural foods, dark green leafies, broccoli, cauliflower,
Yep.
you've got the potassium and the sodium. So if you're consuming a lot of those things and
You're
then
fine.
salting your foods up to your desired taste, I don't think you need to go beyond that. It's not like
Yep.
you need to be shoveling salt in your mouth.
Yep.
It'll probably just flush you out, right? Probably just move your bowels, give you loose stools. But instead just salting up to your taste. And even if you've been told to be on a low salt diet, it's kind of like what you were saying there, Dr. J. Basically once your insulin goes down, so if you're on a lower carb diet or if you are doing some fasting, your insulin's going to drop down. And when you drop insulin, you start to excrete sodium.
Yes.
With that sodium comes the water. So you need to replace that. So adding in these good trace mineral rich foods, even grass-fed meats, very rich in minerals, a lot of good salts in there. It's just really, really good stuff. Dark green leafies, sea vegetable, a lot of things we just talked about, fermented foods, olives, pickles, sauerkraut, all really, really good stuff when it comes to trace minerals. So getting those in your diet and then just salting up to your desired taste, really good. And then, it's really as simple as this. When we were talking about taking Redmond's real
Yep.
salt or Himalayan salt,
Yep.
just put a little pinch on your finger and put it
Yep.
on your tongue. Especially if you're noticing that you're just feeling a little bit dizzy, or especially a lot of people when they start intermittent fasting or if they start going on a low carb diet, they feel a little bit dizzy, a little bit spacey. And oftentimes that's an electrolyte issue. So just taking a pinch of salt, putting it on your tongue, drinking, 2 to 4 ounces of water, just drinking a little water after that can knock that out right away. I've also seen people with allergy symptoms starting having like a runny nose, coughing, things like that. Taking a little bit of salt and water actually acts as a natural antihistamine.
Oh, yeah.
Simple, easy solution. Yep. Because histamine actually, one of its jobs, and Dr. Batman, who I call him, in that book, he talks about histamine helps triage water. So when we become dehydrated, we start to triage water into organ systems that are most vital, like the brain, the heart, right? And so therefore the mucous membranes get less of it. So we're more likely to have allergic type responses, right? And plus we have elevated histamine in our system. So when we hydrate the body, get the electrolytes in, naturally reduces that histamine response, and we get a more balanced histamine response, therefore less of the congestion, right? The runny nose, things like that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Love it, love it. And then what's your favorite brand for a good mineral salt? I heard Redmond's Real Salt.
Redmond's Real Salt is great. Absolutely. That's what I think it's a little bit lower cost than Himalayan. Himalayan sea salt's a great one. Celtic is a good one. So any of those are great.
And then just for people listening, it's not just sodium chloride. Your typical table salt will be sodium chloride. It'll be bleached as well. So we're talking about salts that have, 60, 70 different micro minerals as well as just sodium chloride. So you're getting a lot more in there. I think that's phenomenal. What's number 2, Dr. Jockers?
Yeah. So we talked about the water and the electrolytes.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously we got to start with that. Number 2 is really controlling your stress and focusing on good sleep. So most people don't understand this, but when we're under stress, we're going to be elevating our blood sugar. So higher amounts of stress hormone are telling our body we're in a place of fight or flight. And when we're in a place of fight or flight, we might need to sprint at any moment. It's survival.
Right.
So our body's naturally going to elevate our blood sugar. And when we do that, then, and if we're not running, so if we're just stressed out, like we're sitting in traffic, whatever it is, our spouse says something, and we're stressed out about it, we're elevating our blood sugar, but we're not giving the response the body needs, which would be to run or lift something heavy or climb a tree. So therefore, we just end up with this elevated blood sugar. So then the body pounds out some insulin to help lower that blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, high blood sugar can be toxic. It can actually cause damage to the nerve system, cause advanced glycation end products, all kinds of oxidative stress. So the body gets insulin up to take the sugar out of the bloodstream. And of course, when insulin's up, that's going to inhibit the production of ketones. We're not going to be able to burn fat. So insulin being elevated because of the stress response is going to cause you to not be able to burn fat, not get into ketosis. And therefore, it's also going to cause kind of this spiral where you're going to end up with hypoglycemia, because oftentimes you'll drop that blood sugar too low and then you get another stress response. And it's this vicious cycle. So you got to really keep your stress under control. That's why I never tell anybody to start intermittent fasting or start a ketogenic diet if you're already overwhelmed by stress. Like if you would describe your life and you'd say, I'm just overwhelmed by stress, not a good time for, you know, a ketogenic diet or fasting. That's more for somebody that's got stress under control. Now these are hacks that are going to really improve your body's ability to be more resilient to stress, to improve your fat burning, improve your brain, downregulate inflammation really powerfully. But first you got to get your stress under control, and you got to get your sleep under control, because if you don't sleep well, then you're naturally going to be under a higher amount of stress. If you're getting consistent poor nights of sleep, even if you don't feel stressed out during the day, you're going to have higher stress hormones, which is again going to cause that cascade of high blood sugar and high insulin.
That totally makes sense. And I see an email in my inbox that you sent me a couple days ago for your newsletter, and you talked about some of your favorite adaptogens.
Yes.
I imagine this is kind of what you probably plug in on the supplement side outside of diet and lifestyle modifications. I imagine you're probably using some adaptogens to help modulate this stress response. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. I love ashwagandha, right? A great one. Magnolia officinalis, reishi mushroom, really good lemon balm, right? Very good relaxing herbs. If you want more energy, something like rhodiola, right? Really good. Siberian ginseng, another great one for energy, right? And the great thing about adaptogens is they're going to help balance you. So if you feel anxious, all right, and jittery, they're going to help bring you down. If you feel fatigued and lethargic, they're going to help bring you up. And that's the great thing about them. They just kind of modulate and help balance you out. Also, a huge fan of magnesium too. You know, I find that most people are deficient in magnesium, so magnesium can be really, really powerful for helping modulate the stress response. Modulation means balancing, right? That's what we want. You know, we don't necessarily want to increase or decrease. We want what the body needs at the moment, right? So we want to help balance it out. So we're able to adapt to the environment, adapt to the stressors we're under, and be able to perform at our highest level. So those herbs and magnesium are key.
That makes sense, because people, I think, forget, like they're so focused on their diet. Hey, I'm trying to keep these carbohydrates down because these eventually will break down into glucose or fructose in my body and have potentially a negative effect at burning fat or cause insulin resistance. People forget that their cortisol levels can create surges of glucose through either protein in their body or just releasing glycogen that's already in their muscles. And that can be the equivalent of having an extra carbohydrate that you wouldn't want to eat, but you're not even eating it. It's being released internally from these different stores, and you can still have deleterious effects. So the adaptogens, like you mentioned, I think are great. Just getting those GLUT4 receptors upregulated on the muscle. These are little fingers that help pull glucose into the muscle, and you can do that by movement, by taking a walk after dinner, or doing some bands or some resistance training to help soak up a lot of that glucose. That's really good points.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And, the third big thing is to, basically you want to gradually move into keto adaptation. So for some individuals, I say about 25% of the population, they can start today. They might have eaten 500 grams of carbs yesterday. For 25% of the population, they can go down to 20 carbs and actually feel great within the first week. But that's only 25% of the population. The other 75% is going to feel really crappy. Okay? So what we want to do to be on the safe side is gradually reduce your carbohydrate load. So if you were to take, for example, if you were to take this week or the next 3 days and just count out how many carbohydrates you're consuming, right? Subtract the fiber, so your net carbs, total carbs minus fiber, that you consume on a daily basis. You just keep track of your macros, and you can use like Chronometer or something like that. See what your carbohydrate load is. Let's say you're consuming 250 grams of total carbs, right, in a day. Okay, great. So for the first week, all you do is you reduce it down by 50 grams. So for the first week, you're going down to 200 grams of net carbs. So total carbs minus fiber. And you replace that with a couple grams of well, not a little bit more than a couple, but roughly about 10 grams of healthy fat, right? So you eat a little bit, eat a few more olives, a teaspoon of olive oil, something along those lines. You just add that in while you take out the carbs. And then you do that each week. You drop it down roughly about 50 grams each week. So if you started at 250, by the time you get into the ketogenic range, it's roughly between 20 grams to 50 grams. It's about 5 or 6 weeks, right? So you give your body time to start to adapt and build the metabolic machinery to be able to run on a lower carbohydrate diet and use fat for fuel. And I think that's a big thing. A lot of people try to jump right in. They try to go cold turkey and they have a bad experience. When you gradually shift into it, so you're leaning into it, shifting into it, you give your body time to build the metabolic machinery, to get more familiar with ketones in the bloodstream, right? So if you're eating 250 grams of carbs a day, your body has not seen ketones, right? It's not familiar with how to use them for energy. You got to give it some time to see that in the bloodstream. Then it's going to upregulate the enzymatic systems to start to use that for fuel. So that's a really important strategy. Just keep dropping it down, roughly 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates, replacing that with healthy fat or in some cases healthy protein if you're on a very low protein diet. But replacing that until you get into that 20 to 50 gram range. And typically for somebody that's sedentary, so if you're not doing a lot of movement, you're going to need to get your net carbs down in that 20, certainly under 30 range. And in some cases under 20 if you're very insulin resistant. If you're more active, you could find that you're going to get into a state of nutritional ketosis, which is 0.5 millimoles or higher when you're testing your blood ketones with, you probably are going to be able to handle up to 50 grams of net carbs and be in that range. And if you're extremely active, high-level athlete, you might even be able to go up to 100, 120 grams of net carbs. So you got to kind of find the right zone for you. So once you get into that zone, I tell you, my recommendation is spend 30 days in that zone. I think 30 days in nutritional ketosis is extremely powerful for helping clean up cellular debris, reset your systems. I mean, ketones are epigenetic modulators, so they help your body to express genes that are going to have more anti-aging benefits. They're going to help upregulate mitochondria and support healthy mitochondria. So you spend 30 days in that, and then you find a good carb cycling strategy after that, right? For some people, they like to carb cycle, every other day. For some people, it's, once every 10 days, where you have a higher carb day, okay, where basically you're consuming more carbohydrates, roughly somewhere between 50 and maybe up to 150 grams of net carbs, depending on you. So if you tend to be more insulin resistant, you might do less. Like for me, I tend to be more insulin resistant. So for me, it's like a higher carb day might be 70 or 80 grams of net carbs, okay? Whereas for somebody else, they may be able to tolerate a little bit more, especially if they're very, very active. So you got to kind of find the right zone for you. And then you drop back into ketosis. Okay, and you find the right strategy. For some people, they'll do a feast day once a week where they're doing like one day a week where, they're eating 150 grams or 100 grams of net carbs. So just consuming more carbs. And for them, that works great, right? And then usually takes them, 2 days or so to get back into ketosis. If you do a high carb day like that, and it takes you a week to get back into ketosis, then you really shouldn't be carb cycling once a week, right? Then you would probably want to carb cycle like, once every 2 weeks, once every month, something along those lines. That way you're splitting your time, right? You want to spend some time where your body is utilizing glucose, right, for fuel and basically resetting your glycogen stores, but you also want to spend time in this state of nutritional ketosis. You got to find the right carb cycling approach. And the strategy I like to apply is more of a carb backloading strategy. I
Yeah.
like to eat less during the day. I eat less food during the day. Hydrate. I do a lot of hydration during the day. Keeps my energy high, right? It allows me to perform at a higher level because stress is the antagonist to good digestion, meaning that when
Yes.
we're under stress, we're not going to be able to produce as much stomach acid,
Correct.
bile, pancreatic enzymes to digest our food well. So I like to do more smoothies, right? Things that are pre-digested during the daytime. I'll throw avocado in my protein shake so I get more healthy fats. But the blender has done the job of the digestion. And then in the evening, that's when I feast, right? That's when I have my big meal, meat, right? Vegetables, healthy fats on there. And I find that approach works well. And especially if you're going to add in more carbs, doing a lower carb during the day. So if you want to eat solid foods, eggs, right? Maybe like a big chicken salad with olives and avocado and olive oil or something like that, where it's low carb throughout the day. And then when you add in the carbs, you do it more in the evening. Your sweet potato, right? Your steamed carrots, beets. If you want grains, something like quinoa or rice or something along those lines, doing it more in the evening, you're going to notice that that's going to get better benefits. A lot of research on that for helping stimulate fat burning, right? And supporting insulin sensitivity. What's that?
Also improving sleep. Some people, one of the side effects with keto sometimes is sleep can deteriorate, and that could be from a hypoglycemic kind of episode before bed. So if that's happening, maybe adding a tiny bit of carbs or even a tablespoon of coconut oil to provide some more of those ketone precursors before bed to keep that blood sugar and an additional fuel source outside of the blood sugar in your bloodstream.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think if you do the slow keto adaptation approach, you'll notice less of the hypoglycemia, right? Which will definitely help. Your body will get better and better at using ketones. But a big thing that I do see is that people aren't feasting, right? So if you're under eating for a certain portion of the day, you're eating, lower amount of calories in the evening, definitely eat higher amount of calories, right? To make up for it. And that is a mistake I see a lot of people make is they reduce the carbs, but they're not as generous with the fat. And therefore they end up not consuming enough calories, which can then cause the hypoglycemic type issues, especially for like lean women. I see that, a lot of lean women having that issue. Okay. They just don't have as much body fat and the body's trying to protect the body fat.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I see that all the time. If you don't get enough fat in there to replace some of the carbs that are pulled out, then you could still be in a caloric deficit and that can still create a stress response. So I think that's really important because the whole goal is we have this kind of fuel partitioning mechanism. Imagine like an air traffic controller, right? Planes come in, you point this way, you point that way. Imagine an air traffic controller saying, okay, go to the mitochondria, get burnt up, or go back into the fat cell and get burnt up, get stored. So we want to be the air traffic controller shuttling everyone to the mitochondria, to the muscle cell to get burnt and not to get stored. And we have to change these cellular enzymes. We need more lipolytic, right? Lipo meaning fat, lytic meaning to break down. So more lipolytic, hormone-sensitive lipase, growth hormone, thyroid hormone versus insulin and lipogenic hormones on the storing or formation side. So I think what you're saying, these are just basically upregulating that air traffic controller to say, get burnt up, and this cellular energy can't be snapped on. And the more insulin resistant you are, like you're highlighting, this may take a few weeks, maybe even a month, and you're having a tapering protocol just so it's not so painful, so you don't develop this keto flu type of thing where you're tired, you're achy. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the keto flu is going to be related to hypoglycemia, electrolyte imbalances like we talked about, and HPA axis dysfunction, or, what we call adrenal fatigue, right? So it's kind of a combination of all three of those and they all work together. So you're absolutely spot on. And we want to be able to adapt and teach the body to be able to run and use fats for fuel, right? That's the key there. Now, another caveat too, and Justin, you probably test fasting insulin on your patients. Is that correct? Yeah. So I test that on all my patients, right? Fasting insulin levels. And so normally if you're fasting for 12 to 14 hours, you finish dinner, let's say 6 p.m., you're doing your blood work at 8 a.m., something along those lines, your ideal fasting insulin should be roughly somewhere around 3 to 5, right? Like in that range. If you're on the lower end there, like 2, 3, okay, you probably need to do a little bit more carb cycling. You probably need to bump that insulin a little bit more, okay? If you're on the higher end, right, there's a lot of people out there, they're insulin levels, fasting insulin is 12, 14, 16.
Yep.
These are people that are going to do better doing fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, longer fasting, and lower carb throughout the day to get that insulin level down. Okay. So that's another caveat, getting your fasting insulin levels tested. That's going to help you understand your carb tolerance point, right?
And just
So
to kind of
really
piggyback on that, Christopher Gardner did an amazing study out of Stanford in 2007 called the A to Z study. And this study was interesting because he compared 4 different kinds of diets. He compared an Atkins style diet, an Ornish kind of, higher carbohydrate, more vegetarian diet, a zone diet, which is like a 40-30-30, and then I think a standard American diet. So there were 4 diets. And it was interesting because the Atkins group, the lower carb group, had the largest amount of success, but then there were still people that were successful in other groups. And then they looked at the people and they tried to extrapolate why a lot of people in the Atkins did great, but why there were some people in other groups. And what they found were in the higher carbohydrate groups, the people that did well were the ones that had their fasting insulin below 7. So in other words, the people that were more insulin sensitive, meaning their pancreas made less insulin, they could tolerate the higher carbohydrates, and their threshold was 7. Anything greater than 7, they could not tolerate the higher carb, and they only got success on the lower carb group because that helped bring their insulin back into balance. And I agree, that study, they see below 7. I like 2 to 5. I think that's a good point. And I think this is really important. People listen, we're practitioners, so we understand that there are some people that do well not following that exactly. And the question is why? We don't want to be dogmatic and saying, no, everyone has to, and it's a rule, it's not, but we have to understand why there may be some exceptions. And that's, I think, one of the biggest data points that we can use to say, hey, these are the people that are going to benefit. These, you may be able to break the rule a bit, and then we can actually have some objective data on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you do need insulin. You need insulin in particular for converting T4 into T3. So your active thyroid hormone. And if you don't get that, this is where we'll see people start to, for example, lose hair. They get really, really fatigued. They get constipated. They get really, really cold when they're fasting or on a ketogenic diet, right? And this is a sign that they've probably been under consuming calories, right, as a whole. And, possibly, not carb cycling enough, right? And that's really, really big. So even on a low carb diet, if you do like a very high calorie meal once a day, okay, so where you're doing like maybe under eating, lower amounts of calories for a period of time, and then a larger meal, your body's going to still secrete a lot of insulin. Like even on a low carb diet, when you eat a lot of food, your body's going to secrete a lot of insulin. Okay. And so you want to get at least, unless you're like in a period where you're just doing an extended fast for a specific reason, you want to get a really good shot of insulin at least once a day, right? No more than twice a day, in my opinion. Okay. But you want it, when you do get it, you want to get a good shot of it. What happens is in our society, it's like people are just continually spiking it, right? Because we're eating all the time, right? So we're eating every several hours, just continually getting spikes of insulin. That promotes too much inflammation, right? Insulin's going to activate your inflammasome, right? And amplify inflammation throughout your body. But if you strategically get it once, maybe twice a day, right? A really good spike of it, then that's going to that's the right amount to activate thyroid hormone to enhance cellular energy production. There's a lot of good benefits that are going to come from that.
I think that's great. And what's your strategy on meal timing? I know we had talked about this in the past. I think for a while you were doing kind of OMAD, 1 meal a day. How are you timing up your meals? And then how do you dial that in for patients?
Exactly. So here's how I do it personally. Now I'm about 165 pounds, strong. I'm about 8% body fat, right? So mostly just muscle tissue. And the way I do it is I work out 4 days a week. When I work out, it's very intense, strength training. So I'm usually working out for about, 45 minutes or so, strength training. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are typically my strength training days. And what I do is on Wednesday and on Saturday, I only do 1 meal. Okay. I do 1 meal on those days. Usually it's lunch. Okay. It's whatever's most convenient for me. I'm usually eating lunch. I find that I just do best at that time, right? So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. Having a really good solid lunch. And then that's it, just hydrating outside of that. And then on the other days, I'm consuming 2 meals, lunch and dinner, right? Now, typically my dinners are usually my largest meal of the day. Okay. I'm consuming a lot of food, right? I mean, I'll easily consume 1,500 calories or so, a typical dinner. All right. And usually my lunch, if not, I mean, I probably could even consume 2,000 calories in my dinner. And my lunch is usually probably somewhere around 500 to 800 calories, somewhere in that range. Okay. And that's how I do it. And I function amazing. In fact, my best sleep, my heart rate variability gets really high on my fasting days. So when I'm sleeping Wednesday night and Saturday night, it's like I wake up the next day, I just feel amazing, like so good. And that's why I do it. In fact, if I didn't lose weight when I would do 1 meal a day, if I didn't lose weight when I did it. So what happened is I tried that and I started losing muscle. I started losing weight, and I'm already very lean as it is, right? Very, very thin, 5'11", 160, 165 pounds. So I feel amazing when I'm fasting, but obviously I don't want to lose weight. So that's why I do the 2 meals, 5 days a week, 1 meal, 2 days a week. Seems to work amazing for me. Now, when I do eat, I eat a lot of food, right? My wife's always like, wow, you're eating a ton of food. Yeah. So in order to be able to digest that food effectively at its most effective level, I take a lot of digestive enzymes, okay? From time to time, if I'm under more stress, I'll take a little bit of stomach acid support, a little betaine HCl. Yep. Typically, just taking a bunch of digestive enzymes works great for me, okay? And that works well. And then I also take a supplement that has curcumin, so turmeric, right? It's also got a whole bunch of bitter herbs. It's called fermented turmeric, right? It's got a bunch of different bitter herbs that are really good for stimulating digestive juice production. So I take the combination of those and my digestion's great, okay? And
that's great.
Feel really good with it. And then typically my lunch, most days, my lunch is liquid nutrition. So usually I'm making a smoothie with collagen protein, coconut milk, avocado in there. That's usually my lunch, and I might munch on like a cucumber that I cut up and put some lemon juice on, some salt, and some herbs, right? Or maybe radishes. I'm crunching, chewing on some radishes. So it's usually some sort of raw vegetable along with this sort of smoothie. And then for dinner, it's usually a lot of meat. So whether it's grass-fed beef, or we do like the grass-fed beef hot dogs. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Yep. Those work great. Lots of vegetables. So like steamed broccoli or cauliflower. We make mashed potatoes out of cauliflower all the time. So cauli mashed potatoes, broccoli with butter. So we do a lot of that. We started using this thing called palmini. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's hearts of palm. It's pasta. It's a pasta with hearts of palm. And then my wife makes this amazing pesto, right? So we put pesto on that, which has got olive oil and avocado and pine nuts and all kinds of stuff like that. So it just tastes great. We put chicken with that. So different things, different meals like that. So that's typically how I'm doing it.
That's great. Excellent. Yeah, I do something similar as well. Typically my day in, day out, I'm having some level of coffee in the morning with some butter and MCT and a little bit of collagen. And that's my breakfast. Somewhere 3-4 hours later, I'll have a nice glass of celery juice. And I'm typically drinking mineral water throughout the day. And then my lunch is going to be a big salad. Typically, it'll be about 4, maybe 5 servings of vegetables. It'll be a full avocado, maybe 6 to 8 ounces of chicken thigh or chicken breast with skin on. And then an olive oil, apple cider, kind of sea salt, pepper type of salad. And then dinner will be some level of non-starchy veg, if maybe a little bit of starch in there, squash or sweet potatoes, and then mostly meat and vegetables. And then typically my Saturdays, my wife and I will have a date night and we'll do like a steak restaurant, and now I'll just fast all day. And I'll just that one meal when I go out to eat, typically that one day. And it's nice. I'll still do coffee with a little bit of MCT just to kind of start my day off and get those ketones up. And then I'll just kind of ride that high all day long. And people listening, if you have a lot of hormone issues or thyroid issues or blood sugar issues, you have to have some level of, 1, metabolic stamina and balance before you do it. And 2, you have to have really good digestion, like you mentioned, because now your meal is probably twice as big when you eat at nighttime, and you really need the enzymes and the acids and good digestive function to be able to handle that load.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, really important is, for me, for example, I don't actually get hungry. I don't feel hungry throughout the day. I don't get hungry till I start eating. Yeah. Once I start eating, I'm like, okay, my body wakes up. It's like, okay, I need food, right? And that's actually when I get hungry. So for me, it's very liberating. Fasting is so liberating because I just don't even think about food. I'm not hungry. I don't have cravings. My body feels great. My brain feels amazing, feels alive. So it's so good. But you're right. I mean, fasting is a level of fitness. It's kind of
There
like,
is.
if you were just, if you've never exercised and then you think, okay, I'm going to do a 5K and I'm going to sprint a 5K. Obviously, it's not going to happen, right? You're going to be so sore and beat up. So you got to kind of lean into it, right? And I always tell
Yes.
people start with 12 hours overnight.
12 by
Right?
12 is the easiest to start with, a 7 to 7 or an 8 to 8.
Yep. Simple fast, just like that. And then do the water like we talked about in the beginning of this
Yes.
interview, right? So you just hydrate your body well in the morning and allow for the natural hunger to come out. For a lot of people, they notice 14 hours, easy. Like my kids, they finish dinner with us. We're usually done eating dinner by 6:30. And my kids sleep till like 8:30 in the morning, 8:30. I don't know if your child is like that too.
Same
Right?
way. And it's all nutrition based. Like my son for
Yeah.
dinner last night, I mean, he had a grass-fed organic hot dog, a cut up avocado, and then he's having a hard time with green vegetables. We're getting green beans in with sea salt on, and then we have a organic green drink, no added sugar, no fruit juice in there, and that he'll kind of pound that throughout the day and in his meal. So and it's huge. I see kids that wake up, a lot of it's blood sugar, and it's not getting enough fat. The fat is key for blood sugar.
Gotta have the fat. Yeah, so important. Gotta have the fat. So my kids will finish dinner by 6:30. We get them in bed by 8:30. They sleep till 8:30. They wake up, they take a bath, right? By the time they get breakfast, it's usually like 9:30 or so, right? So they're getting like, and they're fast growing kids, 3.5-year-olds, right? So they're getting like a 15-hour fast right there.
Yeah.
And that's because we have, and they're not on a ketogenic diet. They're definitely consuming carbs, healthy carbs, but they always have the healthy fats. And they're still on a lower carbohydrate template than, your typical modern Americans or your typical SAD diet. And so because of that, they have better metabolic flexibility, right? They're able to go, 15 hours here without consuming food. So what I find is that for most people, 14 hours, as long as you hydrate well, as long as you're sleeping well, right? Doing those things, not an issue, right? And then especially if you do feel like you're overwhelmed with stress, or if you tend to be like a very lean woman or a lean woman that's doing a lot of exercise, okay? Then one thing we'll try to do is something called crescendo fasting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No.
But it's basically where we do a 16-hour fast, 2 days a week, non-consecutive days. So it'd be like a Monday, Friday, right? So fasting is a stressor on the body, just like exercise is a stressor. So exercise exercise is great, but if you do exercise 5 days in a row, right, it can be too stressful on the body.
Yep.
I don't recommend exercising more than 2 days in a row. After 2 days, I recommend taking a rest day. Like for me, I do upper body one day and then lower body the next day. And then the next day is always a rest day. Okay.
Yep.
So unless you're like a high level athlete, I wouldn't there's just no reason. You actually, the recovery is where you get the most benefit, right? You need to recover. Right. So 2 days in a row. Same thing with fasting, especially if you're new at it, or if you've been under stress, or if you tend to be leaner, a leaner female, then not doing it more than 2 days in a row. And ideally, a better way to start would be 2 non-consecutive days a week, Monday, Friday, for example.
Love it.
Right? Or your least stressful days. Like Justin, you're doing your long fast on a Saturday.
Yep.
Less stress on Saturday. You're hanging out with the family.
Exactly.
Things like that. So yeah, it's easier for you.
Exactly. Well, Dr. David, this is amazing. Lots of great tips. I think people that are listening, a lot of these tips are clinical as well. So kind of we're in the trenches working with patients. So these aren't theoretical things. These are things that actually work. So, take it to heart, try to find at least one thing in this podcast that resonates and try to apply it. I think there's some great information. And for all you out there, head over to drjockers.com, drjockers.com. Make sure you subscribe to his email list. Also the Keto Edge Summit. Keto Edge Summit. We'll put a link down below. If you guys are listening, just click there. Make sure you sign up to get access to all the great speakers and the great content that's available. Dr. Jockers, anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah, I would say, definitely the Keto Edge Summit. It's great. We talk about all these types of things, how to get fat adapted more effectively, how to kind of lean into fat adaptation, like I was talking about before, how to navigate through, things like the keto flu, how to prevent getting it. And, the tremendous benefits that can come from a state of nutritional ketosis. I'm a huge fan of diet variation, meaning that you're not always in ketosis. Well, I mean, I would say some people, it's probably about 20% of the population, 20-25%, that will do great being in ketosis year round, right? But then you have the other 75 to 80% that are not going to do good being in ketosis year round. So they need to cycle in and out, right? For whatever period of time works best for them. So we go through that in the Keto Ed Summit. And, it's really the goal of personalized nutrition. There's no cookie cutter approach. You got to kind of find what works best for your own unique individuality.
Dr. Jockers, thank you so much for all this great information. We'll be in touch. You take care.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you. Bye.